There's a common misconception about Vision of the Future, mainly that it was the final Star Wars book released by Bantam. Unfortunately, that's not the case. After Vision of the Future's release in the fall of 1998, there were still 6 more books to come before the license fully switched over to Del Rey. But it is true that Vision of the Future is the final hardcover release of the Bantam era. It's also the final book to get a lovely painted cover by Drew Struzan. And in a way, it was Zahn having the last word about the shape and fate of the Star Wars universe thus far. Vision of the Future made it to number 13 on the New York Times bestseller list for the week of September 20th, 1998, and was ultimately on the list for 2 weeks. Now, more so than any of the other Bantam era Star Wars books, I probably reread Zahn's contributions the most, but usually when I reread them, I would just focus on, say, one character. So I would just reread all the scenes with Luke and Mara and just skip everything else. So what I really appreciated this time around was, like what I found with Spectre of the Past, how much I really enjoyed the Imperial plot lines here. They were honestly maybe the most interesting characters in the whole book, and I'd sort of missed that before. So, a brief summary. While Leia Organa Solo heads off for a secret meeting with an Imperial commander who claims to want peace, Han Solo and Lando Calrissian head into enemy territory in an attempt to find an intact copy of the Kamos document. Meanwhile, Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade infiltrate a hidden fortress where Thrawn's followers await his return. But it is ultimately the fate of Thrawn, whether he's living or dead, that holds the future and fate of the New Republic in the balance. So I feel like the most progress and the most character development happens with Luke and Mara. In Spectre of the Past, they were sort of in this awkward place where it was weird them interacting with each other. And in Vision of the Future, Zahn uses an old trick that he's used before in both Heir to the Empire and The Last Command. How to make Luke and Mara have some essential, important heart-to-hearts. I'm sure there's many ways you could do this, but it seems that Zahn's favorite approach is just to have them trekking through the wilderness for days on end. And in Vision of the Future, they're just trekking through caves, which is fine, it works. I just hadn't really noticed until this reread how much Zahn seems to like that "let's make them go on a really long hike" trope. So Luke comes to some revelations about how to use the Force, how he's been sort of messing up for the past 10 years. And Mara, in turn, comes to revelations that, like John Donne said, no man is an island, and that she has a role to play, and that she has friends and even now family who she's a part of. It does feel at times as though both Mara as the character and Zahn as the author are ganging up on Luke a little, but to be fair, Luke in past Bantam era books has made some very questionable decisions, and he's had really a roller coaster romantic history. So fair enough, I also felt like there was a fair bit of dunking you could do on him. I guess too, it felt in a way that since 10 years have elapsed since the Thrawn trilogy by Zahn, that both Luke and Mara didn't really make any progress. Mara obviously no longer wants to kill him, but she's still closed off emotionally, not close to anyone, has her whole concept of freedom tied up in her ship. And Luke doesn't know what he should really be doing in the galaxy, doesn't know where it's pushing him. He started a Jedi Academy, but he doesn't even know about that. It just, for how many books we've read in the meantime, it just really felt like they were stuck in stasis. And while I'm glad that Zahn wrapped them up, so to speak, I just wish that it had come sooner. And I'll talk about that a little more later. We also see Han and Leia and Lando again. For Leia, she felt more like an essential viewpoint character only because she was a plot device. Zahn wanted to show us certain scenarios and certain incidences in the story, and a previously existing viewpoint character wasn't there, so we have Leia go there. So we have Leia go and meet with Pellaeon, which honestly I was fine with, because she was at one point the chief of state, the president, and she's still a high counselor. Then we have Leia going back to the Bothan's homeworld, I guess because she needs to be there for the final battle. But especially compared to Luke and Mara, it didn't really feel like she was going through changes or an emotional arc to the same degree that they were. And then we have Han, who goes off looking for the Kamas document. Little strange to me because they know that Karrde is also off after a copy of the Kamas document, but I guess that's what happens in Vision of the Future. Just everyone's running around like chickens with their heads cut off looking for this document. And it almost felt like just a chance to rub in how people really bought fake Thrawn as real Thrawn. But we also already got that in book 1 with Lando and the Diamala, so I did like seeing, though, with Han, the prejudice that just normal everyday people feel against clones, though. You sort of expect it on the Imperial side, but it was surprising to me to meet someone who's one of our good guys who's just like, I don't like clones, they shouldn't be alive. And Leia's like, I only get good vibes from these guys, and it really takes a lot for Han to trust them because he just has this ingrained prejudice against them. And then Lando is also off on this wild goose chase with Han. But it was nice to see him. It was nice to see Lobot. And I especially liked near the end when they needed someone to take leadership of the haphazard fleet that had assembled above Bothuai. Lando did it because, yeah, Lando's a general. Lando commanded several battles. He did a pretty good job of it. And so it was nice to see him do that again. And then speaking of wild goose chases, I just felt like Karrde's plotline was boring and unnecessary. And he's really worried, and he's really worried, and like that's just a running theme. He's really worried. They get there, there's gonna be this huge battle against these slavers, and then these monks turn up from within the rift and just fix everything for them. George Kardas gives Karrde and Shada a data card that he says will help them out, and it ends up completely debunking the fake Thrawn and the whole plot that the Triumvirate have in place. But I'm not crazy about that because it essentially means that the Triumvirate plot only falls apart because of a MacGuffin given to Karrde by this former crime boss they were in search of. I think I would have much preferred if all the research and investigation that Admiral Pellaeon was doing had led to this instead of Karrde just showing up out of nowhere, be like, hey, I got some stuff for you. Because it also derails what looked like it was going to be a very exciting battle at Yaga Minor. Bel Iblis and the Rogues have basically been getting ready for an attack on the Ubiquariate base at Yaga Minor, which is like loads of Imperial intelligence. This is once again another attempt to get another copy of the Kamas document. It's immediately apparent to the Triumvirate that this is a rebel plot. Things are looking really bad for them because the errant venture is held in a bunch of tractor beams. The ships are just fighting. They're just shooting. And then Pellaeon shows up and he's like, I know that Thrawn is a fraud. And everything stops. I just felt like while I enjoyed the scenes with Bel Iblis and with Wedge and Corran and the rest of Rogue Squadron, it was just useless. It was futile. I'm sure that Zahn did that on purpose, but it's sort of frustrating as the reader to be building to this great battle and then the battle just ends like that. We have more with Admiral Pellaeon, whom I love. He's great. At this point, reading the books thus far, I think in my head he's at least eclipsed Grand Admiral Thrawn in that he's interesting and intelligent, but not to the unbelievable extent that Thrawn was. We've really got to see Pellaeon grow and develop over the course of these books, and he's such a good guy, and you're really rooting for him to get everything he wants, which is mainly just peace. The Triumvirate also continues to be really interesting to me. There were some power plays between various members of the Triumvirate in Book 1, and there's even more here. And they're starting to work together even less well. Disra, not wanting Tierce and Flim to be the close team that they are, tells Flim about the Hand of Thrawn, which leads to Flim just being flat out terrified at all times that this Hand of Thrawn is going to show up. Tierce seems to be reaching far beyond himself. He has some very lofty goals in mind. Goals which, for the most part, Disra lets him attempt, but is also very leery of. And the final revelation about Tierce's background makes a lot of sense. That he was, in fact, a clone. And not just any clone, but an attempt to combine the original individual, the original Major Tierce, with a more strategic mind like Thrawn's. But Tierce isn't Thrawn at all. He's sort of obsessed with this petty concept of revenge. So while a lot of his plans work, he just doesn't have that ability to look at the broader picture that Thrawn had. So if I had to sum up what my main complaint with Vision of the Future is, it's just that the pacing feels slow. Part of that, I think, is the multiple viewpoint characters, the fact that we're going from person to person, and sometimes we'll just leave someone behind for a very long period of time. That was especially noticeable with Luke and Mara's plotline, and also with Karrde's, that they'd be doing something and we just leave them for a while to check in with other people. I also felt like there was a lot of build-up. And with Zahn, I'm expecting really well-written, really exciting battle scenes. But the battle scenes in this book were a little disappointing, mostly because they either were just cut off in the middle, or I felt like we didn't see all of them. With the battle over Bothuai, what we have is the Imperial intelligence guys sending off messages from all these different ships, supposedly, which gets everyone to start fighting each other. Han and the clones discover that there are cloaked Star Destroyers. Leia on the Ishori ship and Lando on the Diamala ship head off, discover them as well, and then the tide of the battle turns, they start attacking the Star Destroyers, and we cut to a new chapter where the Star Destroyers are just taking off back to Bastion and they're like, we're out of here. So it felt like the build up to this battle was interesting. Leia being on one ship, Lando being on the other, Han scouting around, the Star Destroyers lying in wait. But it was just over way too fast, and I expected more. And with the battle over Exocron, the Exocron fleet is in place, and it's looking really bad. They're pathetic compared to the slavers that have arrived. But they fall back and retreat to the planet. The monks show up, destroy everything, and that's it. That's that. Like, nothing happens there. I also very much got the sense from Vision of the Future that while Zahn wanted Luke and Mara to get together romantically, he didn't want to write the actual romance aspects. So what we have are a lot of really good heart-to-hearts, a lot of really good conversations. And then Luke's like, let's get married. And Mara goes, sure. And I'm like, what? What? The conversation was good. The conversation was greatly needed. But we just sort of get some awkward descriptions and then being like, oh, I really like this person, and then they jump right into marriage. Likewise, everything with Karrde and Shada's plotline really felt like them being a romantic couple. Karrde completely changes his business just so that Shada can be doing something that she agrees with. She doesn't want to be part of the Fringe anymore. So he starts this neutral intelligence agency for her. But that's it. There's nothing overtly romantic about their plotline other than just it feels so coded as romance to me. I don't think it's surprising then to find that there have been a lot of fan fictions, especially of the Luke and Mara pairing, that either get them together earlier in the timeline, or I have also seen a number of fan fictions that try to add that romance aspect that we were missing here. So either it takes them a long time to get back to Coruscant and we get all the nice romantic stuff, or just inserting some of that on their trek to the fortress. I think on the whole, I would have really appreciated some of that here, but Zahn doesn't want to write romance, and so yeah, it's all off screen here. I also found it interesting that while Stackpole was claiming that in iJedi, there's no retconning to see here, just go on your way, nothing to see. In an interview from 2000, Zahn came right out and was like, there were elements in the Bantam era books that I didn't like, and since I got the last word, I was going to set things straight, which, fair enough. I also, too, felt like one reason why I wish the Hand of Thrawn duology had maybe been a trilogy is because there's a lot of references to what will come. Vector Prime, the first book in the new Jedi Order series, will be published in October of 1999. So in a way, Zahn is setting the stage for what will come. We have Park and Fel and the Chist talking about great threats out in the unknown regions. We have the fact that Thrawn was building this power base also in the unknown regions for something. We have Leia resigning from her role as High Counselor, taking her somewhat out of politics for the foreseeable future. We have Karrde setting up as an intelligence agency outright instead of a smuggler who just did a lot of intelligence on the side. We have Luke thinking about how he's going to change the Jedi Academy, and that would be more for younger students. And then older students would be maybe paired one-on-one with a master, like how he was trained by Obi-Wan and Yoda. And then, most important of all, we have the New Republic making a peace treaty with the Empire, so that that's not going to be the overwhelming threat for the next books, and hopefully they're going to be working together against this unknown force that's out there. So in short, Vision of the Future is a nice tag end to the Bantam era. We get good character development, character interactions. We get some nice political maneuverings set up for military maneuverings. What lets me down in the end, though, is the fact that all the battles in the end just sort of get curtailed way too soon, and that the romantic energy in the book it just isn't there, because Zahn doesn't want to write that. So while you get Luke and Mara engaged to be married at the end, Talon Karrde completely changing his organization for one woman, there's not any of the actual juicy romance that I wanted, which makes it feel like I'm missing out a little bit. Frankly, the Imperial characters in this book, Admiral Pellaeon and the Triumvirate of Disra, Tierce, and Flim, are just maybe the most interesting part of the whole book. The Triumvirate is a lot of fun, and Pellaeon is such a good guy. It's a pity, though, that he didn't come to these revelations on his own, and that it took these stupid monks and stupid George Karrde just handing off information for that plotline to be tied up, but it happens sometimes. So next time, I'm going to be reading the second book in the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy by K.W. Jeter, Slave Ship.